Marion, 68, in Sacramento, told me her mornings had started the same way for almost 2 years. Fuzzy numbers on the clock, light that stung, eyes that needed a good 20 minutes to feel like they belonged to her again. She'd quietly decided it was just age, and she'd stopped mentioning it to anyone. It wasn't just age, and the one version of it she was ignoring is the version that matters most. Here's what most people never get told. By the time you've trained yourself to shrug off morning blur, you've usually stopped asking the single question that separates a harmless dry night from an eye emergency. If your vision is gritty and unfocused for the first stretch of every morning, your eyes are commenting on the 8 hours you just spent asleep, not simply on the years you've been alive. That's a very different conversation, and it comes with very different food on the table. Tonight I'll show you 3 ordinary foods you can eat before bed. Exactly what the real evidence says each one can and can't do for your eyes. And the part I truly need you to stay for. The one kind of morning blur you should never sleep on. Because there is a version of this that means feed yourself a little better. And there is a version that means see someone today. And knowing the difference is worth more than any snack. After 30 years in emergency medicine, I can tell you the eye problems that frightened me were rarely the ones that arrived slowly. They were the ones people had already gotten used to. So let's fix the getting used to it part first, and then let's talk about what actually goes on your plate. Start with what your eyes are doing while you sleep, because it explains almost everything about how they feel at 6 in the morning. 2 systems do the heavy lifting here, and both of them run down overnight. The first is your tear film. That's the thin 3-layer coating on the front of your eye, and the easiest way to picture it is washer fluid smeared across a windshield. It keeps the surface perfectly smooth, so light bends cleanly and letters look sharp. But washer fluid evaporates. Overnight, your blinking stops, your tear production slows to a trickle, and in a warm, dry bedroom, that film gets patchy. That is the gritty, sandy, sunlight stings feeling. And it's why the clock stays soft until you've blinked a few hundred times and coaxed the film back. Around 16 million Americans have been diagnosed with dry eye, and the numbers climb steeply after 60. So if this is you, understand something. You are not falling apart. You are in enormous, ordinary company. The second system is your blood sugar. And this is the part that surprises almost everyone. When your blood sugar runs high overnight, the lens inside your eye actually pulls in water and swells, like a sponge left sitting in the sink. A swollen lens bends light differently, and you genuinely wake up more nearsighted than you were the day before. Eye doctors see this constantly in people whose diabetes isn't well controlled, blur that drifts in and out with the sugar. So one of the quietest reasons your morning vision seems worse isn't really your eyes at all. It's your metabolism, whispering through your eyes. Hold on to those 2, tear film and blood sugar, because every food we're about to talk about works through exactly those 2 doors, or it doesn't work at all. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking. It's just dry eye. I'll grab some drops at the pharmacy and skip the kitchen advice. And drops are fine. But be honest with yourself about what they do. They patch the tear film for an hour or 2. They don't touch the overnight blood sugar. They don't feed the back of your eye. And they absolutely do not tell you whether that blur is the boring kind or the kind that needs a doctor this week. Drops treat a symptom for a morning. What we're doing here treats the night, and it keeps you honest about the difference. So let me rank these 3 foods for you. Strongest evidence first, because you deserve to know which one is a real lever and which one is just a nice to have. Start with the one I'd put my money on, pistachios. Of all the common nuts, pistachios carry the most of 2 pigments your retina is quietly desperate for, lutein and zeaxanthin. Picture the macula, the tiny central patch of your retina that does your sharp, detailed, reading a face across the room vision, as having a built-in pair of sunglasses. Lutein and zeaxanthin are the tint in those lenses. They soak up the harsh blue end of the light spectrum and mop up the daily wear that ages the retina from the inside. When that pigment runs thin, glare feels worse, night driving gets harder, and fine detail slowly fades. This isn't a hunch or a wellness rumor. The National Eye Institute ran one of the largest eye nutrition trials in American history, a study called AREDS 2, with roughly 4,000 older adults followed for years. Adding lutein and zeaxanthin cut the risk of progressing to advanced age-related macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of vision loss in Americans over 60. And this is not a rare disease you can safely ignore. Close to 20 million Americans over 40 are already living with some stage of macular degeneration, and most of them have no idea, because the early stage is silent. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't announce itself. It just quietly thins the tint in those built-in sunglasses. Now the honest part, because I refuse to oversell you a nut. A small handful of pistachios is not the same dose as a study capsule, and no food reverses damage that's already been done. What food does is feed that pigment day after day in the background, which is exactly the kind of thing that pays off over years, not overnight. So 5 to 7 unsalted pistachios in the evening is not a cure. Think of it as a small deposit into an account you'll be very glad you funded at 80. And please, skip the salted ones. The sodium works against you, especially if your blood pressure already runs high. And high blood pressure is hard on the very same tiny vessels that feed your retina. Second, and this is where I have to disappoint the internet a little, chia seeds. Chia is the go-to bedtime eye food online, and it's always for the same reason, omega-3 fats, which everyone links to soothing dry eye. So here's the reversal, and it might save you some money. When researchers finally put that idea to a real test, a large trial called DREAM, funded by the National Eye Institute, more than 500 people with genuine dry eye, the omega-3 supplements did no better than a placebo of plain olive oil. Let that land for a second. The fish oil fixes your dry eye story that gets repeated everywhere is far, far shakier than the ads pretend. If you've been spending real money on supplements for gritty eyes, that's a fair thing to reconsider tonight. So why would I keep chia on the list at all? Not as medicine, as hydration and blood sugar control, which loops us right back to those two overnight systems. Soak a single tablespoon of chia in water or a little milk, and it forms a soft gel that holds many times its weight in fluid. That gel slows how fast sugar hits your blood after an evening snack, which helps flatten the overnight sugar swings that swell your lens and blur your morning. The omega-3s and fiber are a genuine bonus for your heart and your gut. And there's nothing wrong with a bonus. Just buy chia for the steadier night, not for a miracle it was tested for and didn't deliver. Third, the one everybody files under digestion and nothing else. Prunes. Forget most of the vitamin claims you've heard attached to them. The real reason prunes earn a spot at bedtime is simpler and better supported. They sit low on the glycemic scale, meaning they nudge your blood sugar up slowly instead of spiking it. 2 prunes instead of a couple of cookies means a flatter sugar curve while you sleep. And you already know the refrain by now. A flatter curve means less lens swelling and less of that refractive morning blur. They also carry potassium and polyphenols, part of the same broad plant food pattern that shows up every single time researchers study what protects aging eyes. And that pattern deserves a short detour because it's the strongest food and eyes finding most people have never once heard. Harvard researchers followed tens of thousands of adults for years and found that the ones who ate the most green leafy vegetables, the nitrate-rich ones, spinach, kale, collard greens, had roughly 20 to 30% lower risk of the most common form of glaucoma. Glaucoma is the pressure-related disease that steals your side vision so slowly and so painlessly that most people don't notice until a big piece of it is already gone. Prunes are not the hero of that story. Leafy greens are. So the honest lesson hiding inside the prune is bigger than the prune. The plate that protects your eyes is mostly built during the day, in the produce aisle, not in one small bite before bed. Now the part I promised. If you take one single thing from tonight, take this, and send it to anyone over 60 that you love, because it is the difference between vision saved and vision lost. Almost all morning blur is boring. Thin tear film, a little overnight sugar, eyes just waking up. Boring is good. Boring is what we want. But there is a small family of visual changes that are not boring. And the reason people lose sight they never had to lose is that these get filed under, "My eyes are just tired for a few days too long." So here is how I want you to sort what you see, from reassuring all the way up to do not wait. Reassuring. Blur in both eyes that clears within a few minutes of blinking and moving around, roughly the same most mornings. Note it. Mention it at your next eye appointment, and in the meantime, work on the tear film and the blood sugar like we just discussed. Worth a real appointment soon. Blur that's slowly getting worse over weeks. New trouble with night glare or reading, or eyes dry and burning enough to bother you all day long. That is an eye doctor visit, an optometrist or an ophthalmologist. Not an emergency, but also not a someday. And if the cost is what's stopping you, know that eye exams are often covered. Many communities have low-cost vision clinics, and losing your sight is far more expensive in every way than one appointment. Then do not wait. This is today and not next week. Sudden blur in one eye that does not clear. A gray or black curtain or shadow sliding across part of your vision. A sudden shower of brand new floaters, especially with flashes of light, like a camera going off at the edge of your sight. Those can mean a retinal detachment. The light-sensing wallpaper at the back of your eye starting to peel away from the wall. And with a detachment, hours genuinely matter. That is not a drops problem. That is urgent. Same-day eye care. And if it comes on hard and fast, it's the emergency room. And the true call 911 pattern, the one that isn't even really about your eyes, sudden loss of vision along with weakness on one side, a drooping face, slurred speech, or a sudden crushing headache. That can be a stroke. Call 911 and do not drive yourself. I had a patient, Walter, 71, a retired mail carrier in Toledo, who noticed a shadow in the corner of one eye on a Friday and decided to see how it looked by Monday. By Monday, the curtain had spread. We got him to a retinal surgeon and he kept most of that eye, but not all of it, and not easily. I have also seen the person who came in the very morning it started walk out weeks later reading the bottom line of the chart. Same eye, same detachment. Completely different ending, decided almost entirely by how long they waited. The food is for the slow, quiet, everyday care of your eyes. This latter is for the moments food has absolutely nothing to do with. Now take a breath, because I do not want to leave you lying in bed tonight anxiously scanning your own vision. The emergency signs are dramatic and rare on purpose. They are loud precisely because they are urgent. The everyday stuff, the stuff that most of you actually have, is quiet, slow, and very workable. You are not looking for perfection here. You are looking for a pattern. What is the same every single morning versus what suddenly changed? So here's the tool I'd hand you tonight, and it costs nothing at all. For the next 2 weeks, keep a 2-line note by your bed. Every morning, write down just 2 things. Is the blur in one eye or both? And how many minutes until it clears? Then draw a star next to any morning it shows up with flashes, floaters, or a shadow. That's the whole system. 2 weeks of that little log tells you which world you're living in, and it tells your eye doctor the same thing in about 10 seconds. Both eyes, clears in minutes. Steady day to day, reassuring. Keep tending the tear film and the sugar. One eye, taking longer and longer, or ever a single starred morning. Now you have a real reason to be seen, and a written record that gets you taken seriously instead of waved off. You've turned a vague, nagging worry into a page of evidence, and evidence is exactly what gets you the right appointment, fast. Doctors respond to patterns, not to a shrug and a maybe, and that little log hands them the pattern on a plate. Before the food, one more free fix, because it helps more people than any snack on this list. Remember that tear film? Its very top layer is oil, made by tiny glands along the rim of your eyelids called the meibomian glands. And that oil is what keeps the watery layer underneath from evaporating too fast. In older adults, those little glands turn sluggish and clog. The oil thins, the water flashes off quicker, and the mornings get drier. The best answer often isn't in a bottle. It's in the room. A bedroom that's too dry, a ceiling fan or a heating vent blowing straight across your face all night, a space heater humming all winter. Every one of those strips the film faster at the exact hours you can't blink to replace it. So put a small humidifier by the bed, aim the fan away from your face, and press a warm, damp washcloth over closed eyes for 1 minute before sleep to melt that clogged oil loose. It is deeply unglamorous, and it genuinely works. If you want the simple version to actually do tonight, here it is. After dinner, soak a tablespoon of chia in a little water or milk and let it sit for 20 minutes. Set out 5 to 7 unsalted pistachios and 1 or 2 prunes beside it. Eat the 3 of them about an hour before bed, unsalted, unsweetened, without a screen glowing in your face. Not because the timing is magic, but because a calmer, lower sugar evening is honestly easier on your eyes than a late bowl of something sweet. And while the chia is soaking, that's your minute for the warm washcloth over closed eyes, so the food and the tear film get handled in the same quiet 10 minutes. Do it most nights, not every night. Consistency beats intensity every single time, and one small habit tends to pull the next one along with it. So let's compress this whole thing into something you can actually carry out of here. Your morning blur is usually a conversation about 2 things from the night before: a thin tear film and a swing in blood sugar, not a verdict on how old you are. Pistachios feed the pigment that acts as your eyes' built-in sunglasses, and that's the deposit with the best evidence behind it. Chia steadies your sugar and hydrates you, but do not fall for the omega-3 cures dry eye hype, because a real trial put that to the test and it failed. Prunes swap a sugar spike for a flat one, and they quietly point at the bigger truth, that leafy greens eaten during the day do more for your eyes than any bite before bed. And standing over all of it, both eyes clearing in a few minutes is boring and good, while one eye, a curtain or flashes and floaters, is today, not someday. Here's your one small step, nothing more than this. Tonight, put that 2-line note by your bed and write your very first morning down tomorrow. Just 1 entry. And if you know someone over 60 who's been quietly shrugging off fuzzy mornings the way Marion did, this is the video to send them. Because the curtain and flashes part alone is worth 2 minutes of their time and might save an eye. Take good care of the quiet mornings, and know exactly when a morning isn't quiet. Your eyes have a lot of years of work left to do for you. Let's help them do it.